was the summer of 2014, and for my son's bar mitzvah present, just like many Jewish parents, we wanted him to bond with the Holy Land. Oh, it worked perhaps too well. My husband had stayed back at the hotel, and our friends, my son and I, had just stopped in a pharmacy.
Run to the bomb shelter, sweetie. Please hurry. I didn't hear the sirens at first, but the Israelis did. They're used to hearing these things. We ran to the back of the storeroom. It was a 12-foot by 24-foot windowless bomb shelter. My heart's pounding. Boom! Boom! I hear it and feel the percussion of the exploding bombs. I'm trying not to get sick. I look at my 13-year-old son and I think I'll never forgive myself if something happens to him.
That's an excerpt from a speech I gave to the Orange County Jewish Bar Association. It was the first, but not the last time we had to run to a bomb shelter. Our adventure and my transformation is also the subject of my book, Blasted from Complacency, A Journey from Terror to Transformation in Israel. There is no chapter in a parenting book on what to do when a war starts and you're on a family vacation. Think touring extraordinary and sacred sites mixed with cowering in bomb shelters. I'm still trying to get over the Jewish guilt of taking my son to war for his bar mitzvah present. The impact of being human targets helped me understand the plight of Israelis living like this, and it also made me want to work on peace. How Israel is often described on the news is not what I'd seen with my own eyes. And I felt Palestinian parents also preferred their children playing safely in their backyards. The missiles exploded just near enough to blow apart my world as I knew it, forever changing me. And you'd never recognize my life today with what it was like then. I believe I found my life's purpose. Hello, I'm Penny ST, and I'm the host of Peace with Penny. Today is the final episode of Season 3. Since the beginning of Peace with Penny, we've been having a great time learning about the many peace organizations filled with Israelis, Palestinians, and others who want peace within the region. We are grateful for their efforts. Learning from them always puts a smile on my face. How about you? We're always telling you that there are many people working on peace between Israelis and Palestinians, and we thought it would be fun to show you by doing a recap of those that we've had the honor of speaking to during Season 3. Consequently, the episode is longer than normal to squeeze in the many organizations that we've spoken with this season. We believe it will be well worth your time. We found it inspiring. At the end of this post, we have included direct links to the interviews for each of the organizations if you'd like to conveniently listen to the full episode. Peace between Israelis and Palestinians is worked on from many different creative angles, including but not limited to conservation, environment, and sustainability, from women's perspectives to peace movements, using sports, music, art, language, health, and interfaith dialogue, even using cartoons, sometimes concentrating on specific communities, and for all ages, adults or kids, in schools with education and in summer camps, trying to reach everyone, including the younger generation who are tasked with trying to solve this mess. As you will see, many people are working hard to improve the lives of Jews, Arabs, and Palestinians in the Middle East, promoting cooperation, and Peace with Penny strives to get the word out that there is hope for peace in the region. We will begin a recap like we did Season 3 with the Alliance for Middle East Peace. Many of the peace organizations we interview belong to ALMEP, and we began Season 3 by hosting this year's gala. Today's show is a bit different. Some of the peace organizations that we've interviewed this past year have worked with a fantastic organization called the Alliance for Middle East Peace, or ALMEP. In fact, Peace with Penny has also interviewed both Avi Meyer-Stein, their founder and president, and Huda Abu-Rakub, their director. In today's show, we are going to look at clips from this year's annual gala, Light the Way, a global celebration of the peace-building community. Why? We had the opportunity to learn about ALMEP its members, their work, and even their supporters. Why do their supporters choose them to make their donations? So let's get started. ALMEP was founded in 2006, is headquartered in Washington, D.C., and has nearly 160 Israeli and Palestinian peace organization members. They envision a Middle East in which Israelis and Palestinians have built the trust necessary to live together with dignity, peace, and security. Amen. ALMEP has been instrumental in raising awareness of these grassroots Israeli and Palestinian peace organizations, as well as helping to successfully advocate for funds to support them. The $250 million Nita M. Lowy Middle East Partnership for Peace Act, or MEPA, approved by Congress in December of 2020, is just one example that took a decade of hard work by ALMEP to achieve, but through their dedication, it finally paid off. Speaking of their hard work and dedication, let's begin ALMEP's gala with a few words from the man who started it all, their president and founder, Avi Meyerstein.
Hi everyone, I'm Avi Meyerstein, the founder and president of ALMEP, the Alliance for Middle East Peace. It's a real privilege to be here with you and have the chance to welcome you to this special broadcast of ALMEP's Winter Gala, Light the Way. We're incredibly grateful to Penny T for the work she does every day of the year to raise the voices of the peace builders so that they can get the support that they need from all around the world. And we're particularly grateful that she's hosting ALMEP's Winter Gala here for all of you. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy the gala, and when you're done, check out almep.org so you can learn about ways that you can become part of this big push for peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Avi. It's a great privilege to share ALMEP's work, and as you know, it brings me great joy to work with these incredible peacemakers. Before we go any further, let's hear from their supporters, why they choose ALMEP.
I support ALMEP because
they make a real difference.
They empower Palestinian and Israeli peace builders.
They give me hope for peace in the Middle East.
As an ALMEP supporter, I see an incredible impact for my gift.
Honestly, I know no other organization where my support goes so far.
The Alliance for Middle East Peace is the largest and fastest growing network of Palestinian and Israeli peace builders.
Over 150 grassroots organizations that are flipping the script, doing the hard work of bringing Arabs and Jews, Israelis and Palestinians together.
ALMEP's purpose is to support and scale its members' work.
How do they do it?
In two interconnected ways.
First, ALMEP's expert on-the-ground team provides services to its members.
All kinds of essential resources and programs based on cooperation.
From training and advice to capacity building, crisis management, and more.
All the things that these peace builders must have to thrive and grow.
Empowering thousands of people to bring change to millions.
Helping Palestinians and Israelis become partners.
Building lasting and sustainable peace.
The second way ALMEP supports its members is by unlocking remarkable amounts of money for their work.
Over the last decade, ALMEP's advocacy has secured over $130 million, mostly from the U.S. government.
And in 2020, they went on to unlock a further $250 million.
The largest ever investment in Israeli-Palestinian peace building.
And all this with a small global team.
No donation I've ever made has had that impact or return on investment.
And there's still more to come.
ALMEP is now working to create an international fund for Israeli-Palestinian peace.
By leveraging that $250 million to move other governments around the world to invest in Middle East peace building.
To create a lasting foundation upon which peace can be built.
To be clear, it's our private donations that allow ALMEP to do its job and unlock these massive funds for the peace-building field.
ALMEP doesn't receive a dime from its government advocacy. Those funds go directly to the peace builders.
That's why I support ALMEP.
Because I've never seen a more strategic or tangible approach to peace building.
Because ALMEP's vision for the future gives me hope that, with the right resources, real peace and equality are possible.
Because, put simply, my donation's impact is huge.
Please join us.
Support ALMEP.
And make Middle East peace possible.
In the region. So let's begin with the first group of organizations who work with specific cities, villages, or communities. We all know change is part of all of our lives. Working on peace is difficult because people who participate must learn to listen intently to the other without interrupting and often challenge their own long-time held beliefs. Clip for citizen diplomacy initiatives, there were times when, due to periodic violence between the Palestinians and Israel, they wondered how they could continue. Today, citizen diplomacy initiatives concentrates on encouraging American, Israeli, and Palestinian people to acquire a consciousness and understanding of one another as individuals, as members of their communities, as citizens of their countries, and as part of the family of nations through the formation of three-way sister city relationships. In 1997, citizen diplomacy initiatives used the establishment of a water treatment plant in Qalqilia in the Palestinian territories to begin a three-way sister city agreement between the Israeli city of Kfar Saba, Qalqilia, and Gainesville, Florida. The need for the facility drove the incentive to work together peacefully. Amen. We'll be able to hear many stories of creative programs that have developed since, including music with the Los Angeles-based hip-hop group Luminaries, sharing children's art projects aligned between the cities, and a documentary called When People Lead. We'll be discussing how establishing these sister city relationships have helped bridge the gap toward mutual cooperation, yielding benefits far beyond city borders.
Political leaders will never take risks if the people do not push them to take some risks.
To have the opportunity to interact with people from the Middle East, from Israel and Palestine on a human level is exactly what I think the world needs.
Well, let's talk. Let's have a conversation now, huh?
When we start with people-to-people relations, it will help.
You know, human relations and relationships are so important.
In 1998, Gainesville, Florida started a three-way sister city program with the cities of Qalqilia and Kfar Saba and Gainesville.
This program, we feel, is different.
You know, our goal is to pair every Israeli and Palestinian city with a U.S. city in a three-way relationship.
This is a great initiative.
I think the idea is great, really.
A good platform for good relationship.
Absolutely. We want this kind of, of relation to go ahead.
We need bridges of love and understanding.
I think that we can be a bridge.
We would like to have cooperation.
It will provide us with an ample opportunity to really begin to move in the direction of sustainable crime.
Let's do the 50-50-50.
We'll work on that, inshallah.
What we're here to do is make personal relationships first.
And I'm really excited about having the luminaries here.
Be the change that you want to see in the world, like Gandhi live for peace. Aspire to peace. Someone who fights for the beliefs, like Martin Luther King. Aspire to peace.
In 1982, the city of Gainesville initiated the first U.S.-Soviet sister city program. At that time, it was the height of the Cold War. There was no conversations or relationships between ordinary American and Soviet people. And it was a very dangerous time, 50,000 nuclear weapons, threats of using them, and people were scared. And so we started this sister city program. We took delegations there. Other cities began contacting us. After a few years, we were able to connect 200 U.S. and Soviet cities. And then President Reagan went on television and said, this is what we need, more sister city programs.
Enduring peace requires openness, honest communications, and opportunities for our peoples to get to know one another directly. We're proposing the broadest people-to-people exchanges in the history of American-Soviet relations. People-to-people contacts can build genuine constituencies for peace in both countries. After all, people don't start wars. Governments do.
So we're at a critical point here in our project.
If they won't even listen, how can there be any hope?
The wall that we came across there was much higher and much thicker than any physical wall that I've seen here.
It's so close, but mentally it's very far for us. For me.
Keep asking questions, searching for answers, trying to find ways we can just
heal. It's called Flowers of Forgiveness.
We are under occupation.
A lot of people died.
We can't change
this. Warring, people are starving. How many children have to be killed? Maybe the world world is just a reflection of how I feel.
How do we stop the suffering of regular people?
It's just a reflection of how I feel.
I don't want to get emotional.
Maybe the world is just a reflection of how I feel.
All the people want
The world is just a reflection of how I feel.
I believe we can do it together.
I said people to people. Change is going to occur here, and it's going to start with the young people.
They are capable of creating peace and change in the world.
You know, this trip has opened up my eyes.
This time I have tears of joy.
Waiting is not an option anymore.
We need to get these people together.
And not accept the status quo.
We're going to give it everything we've got.
When the leaders get stuck and they're no longer able to effectively lead, that's when the people lead.
On Peace with Penny, I've interviewed many peace activists who work with Root Shorashim Judah, an extremely encouraging and groundbreaking organization. I've known Rabbi Hanan since 2015, and he was the first peace activist I met along with Ali Abu Awad, co-founders of Root Shorashim Judah, a peace organization of Israeli settlers and Palestinians. It is a grassroots initiative for understanding nonviolence and transformation. We met just after our family's fateful 2014 trip that changed my life. Touring incredible sacred sites and running and hiding in bomb shelters. Missiles exploding overhead has a way of getting your attention. It's what my book, Blasted from Complacency, A Journey from Terror to Transformation in Israel, is all about. They're both in my book, and their background will surprise you. Rabbi Hanan is an Orthodox rabbi, settler, who lives in the West Bank. And today in 2022, 8 years later, he has many Palestinian colleagues, but before 2014, that wasn't the case. Even though he lived minutes from Palestinians, and even his gardener was Palestinian, he, like most Israelis, had never had any meaningful conversations with Palestinians. Their lives are lived adjacent, yet segregated. Ali Abu Awad is a Palestinian, and both he and his mother were in Israeli jails for battling what they called the occupation. Rabbi Hanan and Ali have known each other for years now. Could a Palestinian and a settler actually become friends? 2014 changed their lives as well. Thankfully, there are many Jewish Israelis and Palestinians who work on peace together. We just don't hear about them in the news. Reporting seems to follow the old adage, if it bleeds, it leads. For today's talk, Rabbi Hanan brought another Palestinian partner with him, Khalil Sayed, a Gaza-born Palestinian from a refugee family who grew up with deep anger towards Israel and its people. Confused, a Jewish Israeli and another Christian Palestinian working together on peace? Something that seems to have been forgotten in this conflict is that you don't have to agree politically to behave civilly toward one another. Rabbi Hanan and Khalil don't live today in a place of peace, but they come with the conviction that human understanding and trust are the prerequisites for lasting justice, freedom, and peace in this land they both call home. Welcome to Two Truths in One Heart, Two Peoples in One Land. I'd like to thank the sponsors of the event for allowing me to share it with you. They are the Rose Project of Jewish Federation of Orange County Interfaith Network, the Jewish Collaborative of Orange County, and St. Paul's Episcopal Church.
Just imagine this situation. Israelis and Palestinians live in the West Bank / Judea and Samaria, so close to each other, but so far away. What do I mean? When I say so close together, I mean geographically. When I say so far away, I mean that on every single level, their lives are completely separate. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. Separate towns and villages, completely separate. Palestinians here, Israeli Jews here. Transportation systems, separate. Medical care, including hospitals, separate. Dentists, separate. Schools, separate. Municipalities, separate. Everything is separate. Community centers, separate. Shopping centers, separate. We have different calendars when people go to school, when they're off from work, completely separate. Different religions. We have different legal system. I, as an Israeli living in the West Bank / Judean Samaria, I'm an Israeli citizen. I live in a democracy. I can vote. Palestinians who live 5 minutes down the road are citizens of no country. They have no legal rights. Yet we're living in the same geographical area. When you have people living so close to each other, yet so far away, so what is born? Ignorance of the other? Yes. More than that. Stereotypes? Yes. Bigotry, sometimes racism, lots and lots of resentment and fear. We live in fear of the other, deep resentment of the other, and that has practical ramifications. People die, meaning that someone kills them because of fear, because of resentment, because of bigotry, because of stereotypes, because of complete ignorance of who he or she is and why they are where they are. Not only that, there's no common ground. You think I meant the metaphor? No, no common ground. This territory, land, there's no common ground. What I mean is that at the entrance to every single Israeli town, city, village, settlement in the West Bank / Judea and Samaria, there's a guard. And he knows, he's armed, that Palestinians cannot enter, except if they're workers with a work permit under armed guard during work hours, accompanied by their employer. But otherwise, Palestinians can't enter. And at the entrance to all of the Palestinian villages, cities in the West Bank / Judea and Samaria, there's a big red sign put up by the Israeli army that says that Israeli citizens cannot enter. So had there been a strange Israeli and a strange Palestinian that wanted to have a cup of coffee together, there's almost no place to do it. There's no common ground where the two sides can sit in dignity, in equality, with a sense of safety and security. There's no place. Until 8 years ago, we founded Roots. As Lisa said, Roots is the Israeli-Palestinian grassroots initiative for understanding, nonviolence, and transformation. And we founded not only the organization, the nonprofit, we founded Merkaz Karama. Merkaz is the Hebrew word which means center. Karama is an Arabic word that means dignity. The Dignity Center is the only joint Israeli-Palestinian community center in the whole West Bank. It's the only place where the two sides can and do meet every day with a sense of equality, with a sense of dignity, with a sense of security, with a sense of freedom. What happens there in the Dignity Center? I'll tell you what happens. Miracles happen. We have social activities, we have cultural activities, we have religious activities, we have interfaith dialogue, we celebrate holidays together, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. We have the women's group, we have photography groups, we have drawing, we have arts, we have music, we have learning others' language, we have deep political discussions, we get to the core of the issues, we have lectures about the history of the land, the culture of both sides. I said, miracles happen? The two sides come to an event, Israelis and Palestinians. At the beginning, they sit on separate sides of the room. We break the ice with a facilitated discussion, or without a facilitated discussion, they just open up and talk. They hear the lecture together, they start working together, they talk. At the end of activities, so many times people come up to me and say, Hanan, that was great. I say, it was so great. They say, I talked to that person over there. He's not a monster. It turns out that he's a human being. We're surprised, and we're surprised that we're surprised, but we're still surprised that it turns out that the person from the other side of the fence actually is pretty much like me. We can talk. And people are transformed. They begin to break down that hard shell, that callous outer shell that separates me from her, us from them, and discover a human being on the other side of the fence. The Dignity Center is not just a community center. It's also an educational hub for people from around the country and around the world. We host their high schools from Israel. We host their high schools from around the world. We host gap year programs, Israelis before they go to the army. We have 40 different gap year programs this year have come to the Dignity Center. So in addition to all the programs for the local people, local Israelis meeting local Palestinians, people from around the country and around the world come to meet each other, synagogue groups, federation groups, we have interfaith delegations. We've had politicians come from Massachusetts, from Colorado, to hear our take on the conflict, to see the work that we're doing and bring the two sides together. University groups from around the world, in addition to university groups from Israel, come to meet a settler, to meet a Palestinian, at the same time in the same room, talking to each other with respect. It's something that's phenomenal, not found anyplace else. The Dignity Center is more than what Roots is. It's the community center, it's the educational hub, like I said, but Roots does more than that. We go outside of the Dignity Center. We send an Israeli speaker and a Palestinian speaker, like Khalil and myself, to speak in Israeli homes, to speak in Palestinian schools, to speak in Israeli schools around the country, to spread the message that the two sides can talk to each other, can develop a common language. We're on Israeli television, we're on the radio, we're on social media, we write, we try to change the discourse. And lastly, I want to mention the advocacy and the activism work that we do on the ground locally. Number one, to try and to prevent violence before it happens. We work with rabbis, we work with imams, we work with local politicians behind the scenes. When we hear about a center of violence developing, throwing rocks here, burning down olive trees here, vandalism potentially in a synagogue and a mosque, we try and work behind the scenes to prevent it from happening. And also we address violence after it happens. If a synagogue has been torched, if a mosque has been torched, if an olive grove of Palestinians has been destroyed, we're very often there the next day saying, this is not us. That's not the true face of our people. Sometimes we find ourselves, a delegation of Israelis and Palestinians jointly going to a mourning tent if a Palestinian boy was killed by the Israeli army, if an Israeli boy was killed by Palestinians, to jointly say together, that's not us. Thirdly, not only is it before violence, not only is it after violence, we also do an awful lot to improve Palestinian lives on the ground. With its water rights, with its freedom of movement, with its permits to go to the hospital, we try and intervene as much as we can. And the last thing, in this advocacy and this activism, is the work we do with the Israeli army. The Israeli army understands, they don't understand Palestinian society. We educate officers, soldiers come and hear Palestinians speak about their society, so the army can act within the framework of the terrible occupation more humanely and more wisely and do less damage to Palestinian lives. I mentioned all this is focused around the Dignity Center. Today, it's not only the one Dignity Center between Bethlehem and Hebron, in what the Jews call Gush Etzion. Today we have branches in 4 different places, all in the West Bank.
Today, we'll be speaking with Phil Saunders, one of the founders of an organization called Path of Hope and Peace, which was started in 2014. At Peace with Penny, we believe in peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Why? Because it's the only future that'll work. We'll show you some examples of Israelis and Palestinians working together today in the West Bank, connections between peacemakers in the Israeli town of Sur Hadassah and the Palestinian town of Husan, friendships embracing the Palestinian village of Wadi Fukin and the Israeli city of Beitar Illit. Today, there are strong communities forging the way to what can be Israel's future. Curious? What happened in May during the skirmishes? We'll show you necessity can breed cooperation.
Hello everyone. Here we are at the entrance to the town of Husan, a Palestinian town in the West Bank. And as we walk in, we can see that there's a red sign that warns Israelis that entrance to this Palestinian village could be dangerous for Israeli citizens.
But the reality is, that sign is out of date, because a change has happened in this town. Over the course of years, from having been dangerous for Israelis in the intifadas, this is now a town where the signs are written in Hebrew. This is Puncheria. where you get your car punctures fixed. And if we look, we see Hebrew on almost all of the signs here because their livelihoods depend upon Israelis coming in and buying things. And now, if we look at these signs over here, the sign in black, white and yellow there, that says Stifat Shalom. That's the car wash of peace. And underneath it, in white, this is written Kiosk Shalom. It's the kiosk of peace, where Israelis can come and buy everything cheaply, whatever they might need. And this is how we have it in Husan now for many years. And we've built a robust coexistence that can even stand difficult periods such as what we've just gone through, where fires were burning all over the land. Here we were working together as a team to keep the peace and the coexistence going. And that's what we're seeing today, here at the end of May 2021.
And by keeping the peace, we were able to get straight back to normality after the war. This was the first group to come and visit us already at the end of May. A mixed group of Jewish and Arab Israelis that came to visit the beautiful natural springs in the town of Husan. And this is just the latest in many trips that we've been having to the town of Husan.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Phil?
Sure. You want to talk about the springs or the war in May? Where should we start?
The springs first. The springs first.
Right. So the springs are a wonderful location in the valley beneath Husan. Husan is a mixture of commercial activity on the main street above and agricultural activity in the valley below. And they have multiple natural springs and plenty of water. And it's a wonderful location for everyone to visit. And my Palestinian partner Ziad, who we can see in the video there, who was flashing everybody, he realized that there was a great opportunity when the pandemic hit, because Israelis couldn't fly abroad like we normally do. And so he realized, hey, let's invite them to come and visit our springs and open up to tourism. And he posted a few pictures on a Facebook group, and a few of them responded, and a few brave souls came along, and they had a fantastic time. So they went home and told their friends and families about it, and more came. A trickle became a flood, especially when it was then featured in September 2020 on Channel 12 News in Israel. And so all of a sudden, ever since then, Israelis have been coming non-stop, especially weekends. There are busloads arriving, and it's becoming a big tourism business. And this is one of the things that coexistence can achieve. When Israelis and Palestinians choose to work together, everyone benefits.
It's just the latest in many trips that we've been having to the town of Husan in recent months.
And these are Israelis?
Yep, that's a large group of Israelis.
Yachad is the Hebrew word for together. And in our neighborhood, Israelis and Palestinians work together to build coexistence.
And so what is this march about?
Okay, so this was the March of the Flowers on Jerusalem Day 2021. That was May the 10th, when all the tensions were building already, but the war hadn't actually started. The war began when at 6 o'clock local time, some rockets were then fired from Gaza, and then it all began big time. Up till then, there were tensions in Jerusalem and in various areas, but once rockets and military action began, then all the tensions blew up in mixed cities all over the land. And we had to work hard to retain what we'd built, the coexistence in our area. But what you're seeing there was a march of the flowers to try to calm things down. Everybody knew it was tense at that time, but it hadn't quite blown up yet.
So these are obviously, I see the Arabic on the sign, I see the Hebrew on the sign. These folks are from Hussan and Sur Hadassah. Is that correct? Or
what you can see Ziad on the left.
Right, I see that.
Around the corner from me, but the vast majority of everybody else came from all over the land to this march, and they were peacemakers of various kinds who wanted to stand together in solidarity at this difficult time. So that the sign there simply says Jerusalem against violence. So they knew that there was danger of violence happening. It was already starting to happen, and they wanted to take a stand.
Penny. Awesome. In today's episode, we'll be speaking with Roy Silverberg, the director of the School for Peace, located in the mixed village in Israel, Wahad al-Salam Nev Shalom, which is a unique and inspiring cooperative village jointly founded by Israeli Jews and Arabs. The School for Peace is an uncommon educational institution founded in 1979, offering Jewish-Arab encounter programs in the spirit of their mixed Jewish and Arab community. It is the first educational institution in Israel promoting broad-scale change towards peace and more humane, egalitarian, and just relations between Palestinians and Jews. The School for Peace works with Jewish and Palestinian professional groups, women, and youth, creating a genuine egalitarian dialogue between the two people. Through workshops, training, programs, and special projects, the SFP develops participants' awareness of the conflict and their role in it, enabling them to take responsibility to change the present relations between Jews and Palestinians. Although they have existed for over 40 years, unfortunately, in September of 2020, they had 2 arson attacks, and ironically, the School for Peace was burned down. Still, until this day, they don't know who committed the crime. They have continued teaching, holding classes, using other buildings there and within the town, and have fundraised to rebuild the school. They've demonstrated their dedication and perseverance for peace. And let me share this picture, this very sad picture here. And why don't you talk about that whole issue and what happened? And
yeah, and September 1st, 2020, an arson attack was committed, and the School for Peace was burned down. The classrooms were burnt down, and we still don't know who did it. And but there is evidence that it was an arson attack. The police closed the I don't know how you call it, closed the investigation after 6 months.
why, if they don't know who caused it, why would they do that?
I think that this is what you do when you don't know who did something. No, like if you know who did it, and after the investigation, you can continue. And here they didn't have the investigation failed. And I tell you something even worse, maybe. After 2 days after that attack, like the School for Peace we changed our auspices to another building in the village, to the Peace Library, which was vacant for us, or which was vacant, and we could use it. And then 2 days later, that that building was also, there was an attempted arson here, which was only because it's a new building with sprinklers and fire alarm and all that. It was only damage to the furniture and to some of the books, but not to the building. So we were really feeling haunted. I went around with a headache for several weeks. And this is when I became director.
Oh, welcome to management. Oh my goodness. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing at the irony that you have big shoulder pads, I hope.
And what I was not aware that what would happen is that we went into a very big campaign using, thanks to the Communications and Development Office of the village. We managed to raise more than $1 million for the rebuilding of the School for Peace. And now we are having the task of really building it. And this is something I didn't plan on when I took the job.
So when do you think the school will be rebuilt?
I hope that in a year from now, or maybe a bit more. I don't know if you're aware, but there is inflation going on. And it's not sure that the money we collected would be enough. And it's like we're trying to figure this out as well.
But even so, all along you've been still running the school just from different buildings, and it's still going on. I want people to know that. Today we're going to speak with Kara Abbas, the chairman of the Arab Jewish Center for Empowerment, Equality, and Cooperation, Negev Institute for Strategies of Peace and Economic Development, or AJIC-NISPED, an Arab Jewish peace organization. AJIC-NISPED is a large organization with a $4 million annual budget and has a wide range of projects, and has been working diligently on peace between Jews, Arabs, and Bedouins for over 15 years. They've also worked to help many developing countries worldwide train young leaders in Africa, Haiti, the Palestinian Authority, Jordan, and more. They have had 250 volunteer year programs, have 1,500 volunteers aged 13 to 25, and they have 5,000 members in their youth organization. We'll concentrate on their work in Israel between Arab-Jewish partnerships, especially with the Bedouin community. Did you know that Bedouins are also citizens of Israel? However, they're also some of the poorest people in the country due to many factors that we'll discuss, not least of which having to change from a nomadic culture to a westernized civilian structure. Change of any type is always difficult, but such an extreme cultural change for an entire group of people take lots of time and effort. Jewish Israelis and Bedouins working together within Israel is one way to work on peace. I'd like to play a brief clip about AJIC-NISPED. It has some history of the organization, shows a taste of some of their projects. It's not all in English, so for some of it you'll have to read the subtitles, but you'll get an idea of the fantastic work that is going on between the Jews and the Arabs and Bedouins in the region. Some awards they've won for their work, and then we'll talk about their programs more in detail. But
in AJIC, we work to close gap between the communities, create equality, and build partnership. We work with the Arab Bedouin communities in Israel. We work with population all around the country and with communities around the world.
החזון של AJIC הוא בעצם לייצר עתיד חדש שבו כל אדם, צעיר ומבוגר, ימצא את ההזדמנות השווה לייצר את השינוי, לחיות בכבוד, לקבל את זהותו ולקבל את הזהות של האחר.
The Negev Institute for Strategies of Peace and Development was founded in 1998. In 2002, Amal founded AJIC, the Arab Jewish Center for Equality, Empowerment, and Cooperation.
In 2003, we started the Bedouin Volunteer Center for teaching informal education.
In 2004, we were fortunate to get a very small grant that gave us the opportunity to start an early childhood program.
In 2005, we started the Economic Development Department.
In 2005, the formal name of the organization also changed so that we are now known as Ajik Nisped. In 2010, we expanded our program even further, the community health program.
In 2015, the Ministry of Education recognized Shabibat Ajik as the first and only youth organization in the Arab society in Israel.
אז זכינו למספר פרסים. זכינו גם לפרס אוניברסיטת בן גוריון, וזכינו גם לפרסים מקומיים, אבל השיא היה בעצם כשב-2016 זכינו בפרס נשיא המדינה. בשנת 2017, תוכנית ברידג'טק, שהיא בעצם תוכנית הכשרת צעירים לעולם ההייטק, הוכרה על ידי משרד החינוך כמכינה מוכרת, ובעצם מאז אנחנו כבר מפעילים את התוכנית לשנה השלישית ברציפות. אנחנו בעצם עוסקים במספר רחב מאוד של תחומים. בתחום החינוך אנחנו עוסקים במגוון מאוד רחב של פעילויות, שאם אני אזכיר כמה מתוכם, אז יש לנו את שנת קהילה של התנדבות, יש לנו את ארגון הנוער שביבת אג'יק, יש לנו את הורים כשותפים, ויש לנו את ברידג'טק. בתחום הבריאות וחוסן קהילתי אנחנו מדברים על מגוון רחב מאוד שוב של פעילויות, שכולל שירותי אמבולנס בכפרים לא בלתי מוכרים, צוות חוסן קהילתי, הכשרת חובשים, קבוצות תמיכה למלחמות בסרטן השד. תחומי תעסוקה ועסקים חברתיים אנחנו עוסקים גם במגוון מאוד רחב של תחומים. נשים רוקמות חלום למשל, היא הכשרת נשים למציאת מקורות פרנסה. אחד הפרויקטים הייחודיים שלנו בעצם באג'יק מכון הנגב היא הפרויקט שנקרא שנת קהילה, כאשר אנחנו מפגישים מתנדבים צעירים מהחברה היהודית עם מתנדבים צעירים מהחברה הערבית, והם עובדים בזוגות. הפרויקט הזה בעצם נותן הזדמנות לצעירים להיחשף לתרבות האחר לאורך בעצם שנה שלמה. והכוונה שלנו בעתיד היא להתחיל דווקא מגיל הגן, להפגיש את הקבוצות של ילדים, מגיל הגן ועד סיום בית הספר התיכון, כאשר לילדים תהיה הזדמנות לפגוש את האחר לאורך כל תקופת הלימודים שלהם.
We are a joint team of 200 employees and 1,500 volunteers, working together to reach out to more than 30,000 people every year. As Jewish Israelis, we are not working for the Bedouin community, we are working with the Bedouin communities in equality and partnership.
התקציב השנתי של אג'יק היום הוא עומד על כ$4 מיליון, שבעצם באו לחסות גם את הפעילות אבל גם את העבודה והשכר העבודה של כ-200 עובדים בתוך הארגון בשכר וכ-1,500 מתנדבים במהלך השנה. החלוקת התקציב היא בעצם באה למזער את הסיכון, והחלטנו ש50% מהתקציב יגיע מפילנתרופיה, 25% יגיע ממשרדי ממשלה, ו25% יגיע ממקורות תקציביים שלנו, כמו העסקים החברתיים שהזכרנו מקודם. עיקר התקציב באג'יק הוא בעצם הולך להפעלות, לפרויקטים ותקציבי פעולה.
אני חושבת שהאימפקט הכי גדול זה שהם יוצאים עם מודעות חברתית וסביבתית הרבה יותר רגישה. הם מודעים לאיפה הם נמצאים. וגם אנחנו רואים בסוף השנה, כשהם מתחילים להיפגש, איך הם מתנהגים א' ואיך הם מסיימים ב'. כלומר, כל הדבר הזה מתחיל ככה לרקום עור וגידים.
אני חושב ארגון מהחברה האזרחית כמו אג'יק יכול לשנות בצורה דרמטית גם את התדמית ואת היכולת של החברה הבדואית.
As Jews, we believe in our responsibility for tikkun olam, repairing the world. And tikkun olam begins with your closest neighbors. In Ajik, we dream, we innovate, and we implement. Together, Jews and Arabs, for a better future for Israel as a whole.
Today, we'll be speaking with Jamal Al-Karnawi, the founder and executive director of A New Dawn in the Negev. The organization is a manifestation of Jamal's desire to raise the level of education for the Bedouin community in Israel's Negev region. According to government reports, the Bedouin population of the Negev is the poorest sector in Israel, suffering from a lack of infrastructure and quality education. Bedouins are also the youngest population in Israel. 80% of the Bedouin community are under age 16. A New Dawn in the Negev is an Arab-Jewish community development organization based in Rahat, Israel, where they promote education, employment, and leadership. They work together with other NGOs to promote unity, peace, and understanding. They have many creative programs between Jewish Israelis and the Bedouin community, concentrating on educational, cultural, and international activities, including partnerships between Israeli towns and Bedouin villages, emphasizing support for schools and innovative programming. I'd like to get started showing a video of your organization to get a feel for the important work that you're doing. So,
in Rahat, the largest Bedouin city in the world, the Bedouin community is undergoing a process of modernization. 60% of the population is under the age of 18, largely from the low socioeconomic background. 35% of the youth drop out of the school as they are pressured to work to support their families. In this city of children, hardship is a part of the daily routine. A New Dawn in the Negev aims to change this reality by providing support for the Bedouin youth to direct a future change.
My name is Jamal Al-Kenawi. I am a social worker, I am activist, I'm the founder and the executive director of the organization A New Dawn in the Negev that works in the Bedouin community in 3 elements: education, employment, and leadership.
Providing extracurricular activities for youth at risk, closing the gap between Bedouin and Jewish Israelis. At A New Dawn, it's important to work together to adapt to a new way of life, supporting one another and becoming equal partners to lead the better future.
The expression that I know, it's an African expression. If you want to get fast, you should go by yourself. And if you want to get farther, we need to be together, all together, for better chances and future for our Bedouin kids.
I think we can all acknowledge that women and men think differently and probably would work on peace from diverse vantage points. There also are issues of economically disadvantaged populations and violence against women to contend with. The next couple of peace organizations concentrate on women-centered issues. Today we'll be speaking with Neda Levy, who is the Director of Policy Advocacy at Itach Ma'aki, Women Lawyers for Social Justice. It is an Israeli advocacy organization working to advance the rights of disenfranchised women and elevate the voices of diverse women in public discourse. Itach Ma'aki both mean with you in Hebrew and Arabic respectively, and their organization is built on a structure of Jewish-Arab partnership. Via legal aid, litigation, policy change, leadership training, public advocacy, and community organizing, Itach Ma'aki advances the rights of women from marginalized groups in Israel. They support Arab women, Jewish ultra-Orthodox women, single mothers, low-income working women, women in poverty, immigrants, and more. Their multicultural group of women lawyers and activists work towards building a shared society based on the common values of gender equality and equal access to justice. Your organization does so much, and as a woman, I especially thank you for it. Can you give us an overview of Itach Ma'aki?
Yes, of course, sure. So thank you again, Penny. And as you said, Itach Ma'aki is, Itach is in Hebrew and Ma'aki is in Arabic, with you in a feminine tense. And the organization was established in 2001 by a group of feminist lawyers, lawyers who were promoting feminist values and achievements also during the 90s. But in the beginning of the millennium, they decided to establish an organization that will focus on marginalized women, on the rights of marginalized women. And we started with a hotline for women that live in poverty, women workers, that their rights have been abused, and women that live on social stipends from the state. And during the years, the organization developed, and we have now 3 offices. One is in the center in Tel Aviv, one is in Haifa, and one is in Beersheba. And we are, as you said, we work together, Arab, Palestinian women, citizens of Israel, and Jewish women. I'm a Jewish woman. Most of us are advocates, but not all of us. And we do law in a very flexible manner of the word law, meaning that we also represent women in court without any payment, pro bono. And we also work a lot in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament, and we also work with community change, working with women, with grassroots women to create new norms, to change norms that offend women, and even if it's not in the law, but it's part of how some of the communities treat women. We are trying to create changes and to promote women's rights.
Awesome. Today we'll be speaking with Esther Herzog, founder of SHIN, the Israeli Movement for Equal Representation of Women. SHIN was started in February 1989 and was founded with the aim of achieving equal representation of women in all power centers in Israel, whether political, public, or economic. The movement struggles for gender equality in all communities in Israel. SHIN initiates projects that raise feminist awareness by organizing numerous events that provide platforms for outstanding feminist activists and professionals in divergent sectors and fields. It empowers young women and encourages their leadership involvement, promotes cooperation and friendship among Jewish and Arab women, and facilitates vocational and political courses. All of your programs involve Jewish, Israeli, and Arab women working together?
Yes, it's very basic agenda that we want. Yeah, that we insist that it will be together with Arab women, Jewish women, and Arab women, and it can be women from all spheres of life. You know, professionals, working women, academicians, activists, you name it. And of course, we wanted to work together with Arab women. And we found out at the time when we started 1989, and then in the beginning of the 90s, that actually most of the initiatives of cooperation between Jewish and Arab women they were directed at more educated women, Arab women. So Jewish and Arab women from the elite, I would say, elite groups that cooperated. And we decided that we are going to work with women from all groups, educated, uneducated, older women, younger women, from all groups. So this was very, very important from our point of view. And that was exactly what happened when we started our activities with the young girls, with the Young Women's Parliament. Again, we said that we want to have Jewish and Arab girls working together, meeting, socializing, knowing each other and respecting each other and developing patience and respect for each other.
Were
And
other
I
ways
think
that
that
peace was worked on by a couple of organizations that we interviewed at Peace with Penny. By taking a common, significant concern, the two sides were able to move beyond personal preferences to try to solve a critical problem at hand. Today, we'll be speaking with Rabbi Yonatan Nerol, founder and director of the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development. Rabbi Yonatan is not only a rabbi and best-selling co-author of Eco Bible, but his passion is for a sustainable earth, and he works with fervor to protect the planet with interfaith groups of Jews, Muslims, and Christians holding conferences on ecology in Jerusalem.
The Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development mission is to catalyze a transition to a sustainable, thriving, and spiritually aware society through the leadership of faith communities. I want to share a brief quote from Dr. Gus Speth, who was the former dean of the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. He said, "I used to think that if we threw enough good science at the environmental problems, we could solve them. I was wrong. The main threats to the environment are not biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change, as I once thought. They are selfishness and greed and pride. And for that, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation, something we scientists don't know much about. The ecological crisis, in my view, is actually messaging that religion needs to step up to the plate. Because the ecological crisis is not a crisis of the birds and the bees or the trees and the toads. It's a crisis of the human being and of how we live as spiritual beings in a physical reality. And therefore, the response to the ecological crisis, if for the issue really to be addressed, has to be addressed at the deeper level in regards to spirituality and religion and faith. And that's why it's so important that we're here today, in order to look at how theological education can speak to these issues. It's not also just about addressing ecology and environmental justice, which are very important. It also has an effect on theological education itself, because, as you know, many young people today seek in their theological studies to know, how does my faith relate to these issues that I'm concerned about? And by speaking to them and relating ecology to religion, or finding how ecology flows organically from religion, as Pope Francis so clearly has demonstrated, that also helps to renew the relevance of religion in modern society. So thank you for coming today, and I look forward to interacting with all of you.
Today we'll be speaking with Yuval Ben David of EcoPeace Middle East. EcoPeace Middle East is a unique organization that brings together Jordanian, Palestinian, and Israeli environmentalists. Their primary objective is the promotion of cooperative efforts to protect their shared environmental heritage. In so doing, they seek to advance both sustainable regional development and the creation of necessary conditions for lasting peace in the region. Yuval, how would you describe EcoPeace Middle East?
We're probably, I don't know if the only organization in the world, but certainly unique in that we're not an Israeli organization or a Palestinian organization or a Jordanian organization. We're an Israeli-Palestinian Jordanian organization. With 3 co-directors. I
feel like saying amen after that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. Great.
Our ability to keep on cooperating and working together on these shared environmental concerns sort of created, I'd say, pioneered this field that's now known as environmental peace building, right? The sort of using the environment as an entry point to building the conditions for peace, right? Because the environment is not something that knows or recognizes human or political borders. I think in the Middle East, something like at least every country or every 2 countries, or how do I phrase this? Every country has at least one shared aquifer, I think, in the region, like water aquifer. I think about 60% of the water ecosystems in the region cross borders or cross boundary. And these are obviously, for a drying region, climate change is happening about twice as fast here as it's happening in other parts of the world. Heating very fast, drying very fast. A lot of shared concerns about water scarcity, drying, extreme heat, extreme weather events. And these are things we really need to tackle together.
Although Peace with Penny is not political, we did share a couple of organizations that did work on movements that were trying to achieve peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Episode, we'll be speaking with Ezeldine, who goes by Ez Masri of One Voice Movement. From its inception in 2002, One Voice has focused on leveraging a critical but largely untapped resource within the Israeli and Palestinian public, the centrist mainstream, who support resolution of the conflict through a negotiated and mutually acceptable two-state solution. One Voice Movement's mission is to drive a global initiative that supports grassroots activists in Israel, Palestine, and internationally who are working to build the human infrastructure needed to create the necessary conditions for a just and negotiated resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. One Voice Movement believes they can help achieve an independent and viable Palestine and a secure Israel free from conflict, where Palestinians and Israelis are able to realize their national and individual aspirations, building a future based upon principles of security, justice, dignity, and peace. How would you describe One Voice Movement?
One Voice Movement is an international coalition working grassroots and supporting our local partners in Israel and Palestine, Darkenu and Zimam, to make the necessary changes and to prepare the ground for peace coexistence between Israel and Palestine, leading to the end of the occupation and the establishment of independent Palestinian state next to the state of Israel.
Today, we're going to tackle a very complicated subject, and we're going to do something we haven't done before. First, let me stress that we're not a political podcast, and we are not supporting these particular ideas nor any other political peace proposals. But as always, we're willing to listen. We're always interested in people working on peace, and the Nachnu, or Together Movement for New Israeli Unity's proposal is trying to put an end to this conflict. Amen. We thought it would be thought-provoking to speak with Israel Perkrush, the co-founder and CEO of this dedicated organization. The group is filled with educated and experienced leaders who believe they have solved this complex puzzle that ultimately can lead to a peaceful resolution between Israelis and Palestinians. They're like a think tank who searched all of the issues, compared them against other proven peace models, looked at Israel's unique disputes, and then came up with these ideas of how to resolve them. They acknowledge this plan of theirs will take time, perhaps a decade, dedication, others who believe in, of course, money to support their ideas. I'll give you a hint of what they're thinking. Their ideas fit into a 100-page report. They call their proposal the Equal Partners Program and say it is based on a win-win principle. All political groups within Israel will be strengthened together, as well as the state of Israel and the Palestinians, without any side leaving its fate in the hands of the other. They call for the establishment of a separate Palestinian state within the 1967 borders with a safe Jewish minority, alongside the establishment of a federal Jewish and democratic constitution in Israel with an enlarged and equal Palestinian minority. Their federal approach recommends the forming of non-territorial civic communities which would provide religious and cultural services in Israel. Sounds complicated, right? Well, of course it is. We're talking about Israel, and they've struggled to give peace a chance for years. You lecture throughout Israel, and here's just some of your lectures. Can you talk a little bit about what you did at these different schools?
Yeah, well, generally speaking, what we're trying to do is either to persuade people that our vision has a lot of potential and can change things, if we will do the first step, we the Jewish people, we do the first step. So many times we are meeting with people, some of them are students, some of them are older, and we try to explain, to make them support, to be part of our movement and part of our ideal. Sometimes we're only gathering together without political perspective, only to try to explain our narrative, historic narrative, and ideals of mutual pardon and so forth. So in our lecture, we were doing these two tracks, and what you were viewing is actually these two tracks. You know, the one with this red hole, and
the Hebrew University of Jerusalem.
The Hebrew University students. We are talking about our solution, and the other one with all these kids sitting in a circle. We're talking about historic perspective, the conflict, and this is how we work. It's a grassroots work, very difficult. We're determined to do as many as those events as we can in order to persuade Israelis to support our vision.
Fantastic. And here you even meet in people's homes. What is this in Kfar Yona?
Yeah, in Kfar Yona, this is, as I said, we are trying to persuade people to support our vision, which was a very, very good evening that night. And people at the end of these house meetings, either they're signing declaration that they want to give a chance to our vision, or they donate to our movement, or they're joining. So it depends on their views, how they want to act. But we are offering them in those house meetings to be part of our journey. And
I know in the past. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
In the past, I've talked to you about memberships and so on, and you said that you were just beginning to do that. How's it going?
It's going great. We just finished this long program of developing our vision during the Corona crisis. And in the last few months, we tried to have this pilot of understand how can we act the best way we can. And right now we are gathering our first group of members as part of our movement. And luckily we have 20 new members right now, both from right and left, men and women, from different sides of Israeli Jewish society in Israel. And our plan is to create much bigger movement, hundreds of people, together also Arabs with us, to create these strong alliances, new alliances in Israeli society. And this is how we started. So the pilot was great. We are fully confident in our future and our possibilities.
We talk often about the importance of having young people involved in peace work. After all, they are next up at bat to take on this complicated problem. We spoke to a couple of organizations with teen camps and more. I admit that having the opportunity to speak with the young people was a highlight of the season for me. With Penny, we'll be interviewing Scott Rasmussen, Executive Director of Hands of Peace, where they empower American, Israeli, and Palestinian youth to become agents of change. How do they do this? Each summer, Hands of Peace brings American, Israeli, and Palestinian youth together in Chicago and San Diego for a 3-week experience. In dialogue sessions led by professional facilitators from the Middle East, the teens learn about the other. They share complicated and sometimes painful stories about the conflict and explore peaceful solutions to foster equality, freedom, and justice. The participants stay with host families in the local areas and are provided a homey atmosphere, forming friendships that can last a lifetime. After the summer program, they're encouraged to join the 700 Hands of Peace alumni for additional engaging leadership experiences. Hands of Peace is helping teach these teens how to make a difference. I'd like to play a clip about one of your Israeli alumni, Stav Arnon, who went on with 2 friends to create a Facebook event calling on women to protest domestic violence. Would you like to introduce it?
Sure. So Stav participated in the program, I think about 10 years ago, and she is a dynamic individual. You'll see her explain her story about how she took the skills and experiences she learned with Hands of Peace to address a really important problem in Israel.
Hi, I'm Stav. I'm a Hands of Peace alumna from 2004. On 2018, 26 women were murdered here in Israel by domestic violence. I called my two friends, Dror Sadot and Ruti Klein, and together we initiated the first and the largest women's strike here in Israel. I'm a woman, I strike. Here on Rabin Square, in the main rally, we had more than 30,000 women protesting. During 2020, the COVID year, domestic violence increased all over the world. And we had to take an action once again. So we initiated the first Women's March here in Tel Aviv with 12,000 women and men protesting against domestic violence. As well, we initiated a project of spreading cards with hotline numbers and emergency numbers for women suffering from violence in their homes. And we cooperated with Domino's Pizza and other food delivery chains, and we spread all the cards to many houses around the country. I used to think of myself as very politically aware, and in that matter, Hands of Peace really shook my ground. For the first time in my life, I met Palestinian kids that were my age, but living behind a fence, have to spend hours on checkpoints, can't see their family members and other parts of the country. My mind was blown away. And I think that the main thing I took from Hands of Peace, there is no way to avoid and to run away from conflicts, but on the contrary, to treat the wound with gently and patient, and to acknowledge all the past pains, and together to build the bridges.
Peace. Jerusalem Peace Builders, or JPB, is an interfaith nonprofit organization with a mission to create a better future for humanity across religions, cultures, and nationalities. Integral to that mission is the belief that the future of Jerusalem is the future of the world. To that end, JPB promotes transformational person-to-person encounters among the peoples of Jerusalem, Israel, Palestine, and the United States. They have many enlightening programs bringing together Israeli, Palestinian, and American teens and young adults together in the United States, Israel, and in the Palestinian territories in summer camps, leadership programs, four-year programs of conflict resolution in high schools in Israel, and adult programs of travel, educator training, and a new program for empowering women. They are creating peace builders by providing them necessary skills to change the paradigm in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and create a better world. Peace with
I'm meeting the rest of the campers from the Jerusalem Peace Builders.
I'm actually looking forward to see how these workshops might change how we think about many issues.
If they hear things on the news, if they hear things from others, they know how to think critically, and they know that other people might not necessarily be wrong, and they might not necessarily be 100% correct. So essentially the skills that they learn in the camp, how to communicate with other people, hopefully that translates into them using it later on in life.
We all have this morality, we all have these common things, and we basically know different truths, but that's the thing, we can get to know each other's truths and understand what other people think.
والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان.
I just prayed with Marcel and Ismail at the mosque. I've been to other mosques before, but I've never actually joined in prayer. So that was very interesting. I very much enjoyed it.
I've been to a few mosques, but I've never felt as welcome as I did today.
Shabbat prayer.
So Judaism is a faith, Judaism is a people, and Judaism, one more level, is a heritage, because we share the same history.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר גידלנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר שבת.
Before trying to reach peace, and somehow we must have to take the trust-building methods.
You build trust from just getting to know people. If I get to know people, I can trust them. I can be vulnerable with them.
We are from Leaps of Faith. We are from a priest, rabbi, and an imam.
We are from bonding, from peace through friendships.
We are from a world full of conflict, but we are a world trying to stop it.
We are made of love, warm fuzzies, and family time. We are from breaking barriers, from taking down every single stereotype we have.
We are from memories that will last forever.
We are from 4 families coming into one.
And we all have a lot of identities that we can work together and see common ground on. But when we have an identity that is sort of our victim identity, the identity that we feel oppressed by, that one seems to take over a lot more thought in our brains. It takes up a lot of space. And when that takes up a lot of space, we forget about the other identities that we have, the other ways in which we can connect to other people.
Because of this program and others before it, I learned to see from other perspectives.
Not only did you change each other and come together as a family, but my pocket, my leg has been buzzing all day from people that you have impacted. People from Palmer, people from the synagogue, people from the mosque. I want you to feel powerful. I want you to feel like you can make a difference, because you've already made a difference and you haven't even gone home yet.
We are JPB,
Jerusalem Peace Builders.
and as we say in Texas, that's all, folks.
That's all, folks.
People's Health was another significant way for people to work on peace. TD. Healing Across the Divides is an organization of American medical professionals who assist their Israeli and Palestinian counterparts in creating bridge building programs that improve the health of both Israelis and Palestinians. Established 17 years ago, their mission is to measurably improve the health of marginalized people living in the Palestinian territories and Israel via community-based intervention. They have funded and provided technical consultation to more than 50 community-based groups in the Palestinian territories and Israel, and they have positively impacted the health and well-being of more than 200,000 Palestinians and Israelis. By partnering with other foundations in the United States and overseas, their Israeli and Palestinian staff, board, and outside experts provide consultation to the community groups during their 3-year grant cycles. This is peace building utilizing the health community as a conduit for change.
In 2019, HATD funded its first project in Gaza. Diabetes Palestine utilizes the evidence-based chronic disease self-management program, a comprehensive approach developed at Stanford University to help young people with type 1 diabetes.
Like the first point that I wanted to say about the program is the teamwork that we had. It's like the first time since I was diagnosed with diabetes that I've seen like people work as a team regarding helping adolescents with diabetes. And I love the program because it focused on things that us in the Arab world don't talk about that much. When we talk about the psychosocial aspect of diabetes, when we talk about like your mental health, People in the Arab world or like here in the Middle East don't talk about those things that much. It's only about what you eat. It's only about how much you exercise. So they don't focus on other factors that affect your diabetes.
B'Terem, known as Safe Kids Israel in English, illustrates two of the goals of HATD: saving lives through direct intervention and empowering women. Working to decrease rates of child accidents and fatalities, which are especially high in Arab and Jewish Orthodox communities. In the village of Turan, which is a low-income Israeli Arab community, our grantee, B'Terem, trained local senior women to remedy in-home problems in child safety. The initiative examined the effectiveness of a home visit intervention program, providing an evidence-based child safety intervention. For example, once trained, a grandmother would do an audit in a home looking at possible danger points for children. The fact that grandmothers were the ones teaching families about what they can do to reduce childhood injuries, accompanied by the appreciation of the population, generated a lot of pride and respect in the village. The program was extremely successful. These efforts garnered B'Terem 2 prizes in recognition of the accomplishments of this initiative: the 2018 Israeli Minister of Welfare Award, and the second prize for excellence in home safety at the 2017 Safe Kids Worldwide Childhood Injury Prevention Convention.
The next video is of Whitehill Farms, a project of HATD that brings together Jews and Bedouin Arabs in neighboring communities in the Negev. The goals for this project are to improve health, raise awareness around nutrition and the environment, and coexistence.
The Whitehill Farm, here the first slide shows you, this was a piece of desert that the municipality, it was a dream that our Bedouin neighbors and Jews from Yerucham had for about 5 years now, that we started discussing the possibility of having a place where we could raise vegetables and connect with each other and learn about healthy lifestyles, but also connecting to nature and responsibility for the desert that we love and share. These are just some of the pictures of the life at the farm, where what we decided when we saw that it was very, very difficult for cultural and logistic reasons to bring women, for instance, Jewish and Bedouin women at the same time to the farm to promote family plots. We brought kindergarten children with the idea that at the early ages, if we break down stereotypes and create opportunities for getting to know each other and also teach about healthy lifestyles, it can affect also the parents and the families. And just to show you cauliflower, zucchini, tomatoes, all of the signs of the vegetables are in Arabic and Hebrew. These are pictures that Tisham sent me of shakshuka and healthy breakfast with cauliflower and tomato casseroles and things like that. And all of the pita is with whole wheat flour.
The story of the farm and the communities of Yerucham and Rachma working together was picked up by Israeli television. Here is the program.
This small farm on the outskirts of Yerucham is a perfect example of the coexistence between the two settlements. We can see Jewish and Bedouin children playing together and sharing different experiences.
Before the coronavirus pandemic, people from Yerucham arrived here 3 times a week. There is also a joint robotic class for Rachme and Yerucham, and there are many other activities. The children enjoy it a lot.
This initiative has a great value from different aspects: educational, environmental, and also political. It brings us together with our neighbors, connect us to the earth, and also add some educational values which our children don't get in school.
What attracted me to Yerucham was that it's like a microcosm of Israeli society, and it's a place where you're, what I see is the real Israel, where you're not in a Anglo bubble or a circle of people who are similar to you, but it's a place where you meet Israel in all its incredible diversity, with the challenges, and also with incredible people who are really trying to figure out how to live together in the best way possible.
Well, sports was another fun way for Jewish and Arab children to interact. Industry. Jane Craven has been running the Freddie Craven Foundation, the vision of her late father, Freddie, since 2005. Her father was known as Israel's Mr. Tennis. He was one of the 6 founder trustees of the Israel Tennis Centers. One of his passions also was to support tennis in the Arab sector by introducing tennis programs into the community. The Freddie Craven initiative strives to capture the imaginations of kids of all backgrounds and skill levels, bringing together a coexistence community of Arab and Jewish kids playing tennis together with the support from Arab and Jewish parents, coaches, players, teachers, and volunteers. So,
בג'סר א-זרקא נמצאים כ-4,300 תלמידים, שבערך 70% מהתלמידים האלה נמצאים ומסומנים כנוער בסיכון. כל פעילות שתבוא לכאן לג'סר יכולה למנוע מהצעירים האלה לפנות לכל הגורמים השליליים, לכל התופעות השליליות.
Hello, I'm Jane. I'm Freddie's daughter, and I'm responsible for running the Freddie Craven Foundation. When Freddie was the president of the Israel Tennis Association in the 1990s, he became aware of the fact there were so few Arab children playing tennis.
בגיל 10, טניס, הייתי בבית ספר עם מורה שלי, ומהיום שהיא לקחה אותי למגרשים ושיחקנו, אני עשיתי חלום מזה. העליות הראשונה מהכפר שלי זה קצת מפתיע את הכפר, כי אנחנו תמיד חיים במעגל שהילדה גודלת, ובאיזה גיל היא צריכה להתחתן, וזה החיים שלה.
Through the tennis, behavior has changed so much. Coming to the tennis has made them more calm. They are very determined to play, to be a big player one day.
לראות ילד כל יום משתפר צעד אחר צעד, זה משמח אותי וזה בעצם נותן לי את הכוח להמשיך.
בטניס אין אלימות, זה משחק שמכבד וכדור, ואחרי כל משחק אנחנו לוחצים יד, אם זה ערבי או יהודי אנחנו חייבים ללחוץ יד, אז אני חושבת שזה ממש דרך לשלום. מספיק שחבר'ה יהודים, ילדים קטנים, הם ערבים משחקים ביחד, זה התחלה של השלום לדעתי.
The next couple of peace organizations help shed light on Jewish and Muslim beliefs, with the other trying to improve understanding. We'll be speaking with Al-Hanan Miller, a rabbi, Jerusalem journalist, researcher, and the creator of the online initiative People of the Book. Its goal is to introduce basic concepts in Jewish faith to Muslim audiences and vice versa. Through a series of innovative animated videos and one-on-one interfaith conversations, People of the Book hopes to foster mutual understanding between Jews and Muslims and contribute to grassroots peace building. Peace in the Middle East is contingent upon better understanding of each other's religious and cultural backgrounds. A better understanding of Judaism can soften the animosity many Arabs in the region feel towards Jews and Israelis, acquiescing to Jewish existence in the land. Similarly, a better understanding of Islam can help Jewish Israelis understand Muslim sensitivities concerning holy sites and other points of conflict. Very little information exists in Arabic about Jews and Judaism, and People of the Book bridges the gap for both the Arab world in Arabic and Islam in Hebrew for the Jewish Israeli audience. I wanted to show one of your clips that I love because it's in English and it's explaining to both Jews and Muslims the other. And it's about the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Temple Mount.
Hey everyone, I'm Hanan and I'm Jewish.
I'm Suha and I'm Muslim. Today, we're going to discuss an extremely holy site, Al-Aqsa.
You mean Temple Mount?
Temple Mount? Don't Jews pray at Al-Buraq?
Oh, you mean the Kotel. Like you, it's actually the mountain behind it, which is most significant.
Oh really? How so?
Let's start at the beginning, the very beginning. We believe that on that mountain rests a rock from which the entire world was created. In the book of Genesis in the Torah, God ordered Abraham to sacrifice his son on Mount Moriah. We believe Mount Moriah is actually Temple Mount. Many centuries later, but still about 3,000 years ago, God ordered King Solomon to build him a temple in Jerusalem, the city which his father, King David, made capital of the Kingdom of Israel. That temple, or Beit HaMikdash in Hebrew, stood for 400 years until it was destroyed by the Babylonians. 70 years later, a second Beit HaMikdash was built by the Jews returning from exile in Persia. But that one too was destroyed in the year 70 by the Romans.
Interesting. We call Jerusalem Beit al-Maqdis, and you call your temple Beit HaMikdash.
So why don't you tell me about Temple Mount in Islam?
You mean Al-Aqsa? One night, around 1400 years ago, the Archangel Gabriel came to the Prophet Muhammad and led him on a magical night journey, called Isra, from Mecca to Jerusalem. At the mountain, Muhammad tied his magical animal, Al-Buraq, at the wall. He ascended to the heavens, where he met all the prophets, including Moses and Jesus, and received the commandment of prayer 5 times a day. After his return, for several months, Muhammad led Muslims in prayer in the direction of Jerusalem, before the Qibla switched to Mecca.
That's why Jerusalem is holy to you.
Of course. By the end of the 7th century, 2 monumental Muslim structures stood on the mountain: the Dome of the Rock, built over the same holy rock you mentioned earlier, and Al-Aqsa Mosque, on the southern end of the plaza. Both were constructed by the Umayyad Caliph Abd al-Malik. The entire plaza is known as Al-Aqsa or Al-Haram al-Sharif, and is holy to Muslims. According to our tradition, praying on Al-Aqsa is worth hundreds or even thousands of regular prayers. Jerusalem is our 3rd holiest city after Mecca and Medina.
Jews have been praying 3 times a day toward the Temple Mount for thousands of years. For centuries, Jews have been praying at the Western Wall, which is the last remnant of the Second Temple. The wall is also the closest place to where the temple once stood where Jews can pray, since the exact site of the temple is too holy for Jews to pray today, according to Jewish law. Access to the mountain was also restricted by foreign rulers over the centuries.
So can I ask you a sensitive question?
Sure.
Do you want to rebuild your temple?
Well, it's complicated. We do pray for God to rebuild Beit HaMikdash in the future. But until God decides to do so, our synagogues and the Western Wall are where we traditionally pray.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You call it Temple Mount and the Kotel.
And you call it Al-Aqsa and Al-Buraq.
But I think we can agree that it's one of the holiest places on the planet.
So we need to protect it and respect it for all of our sakes.
We have a unique show. At Peace with Penny, we attended a special event called Friendship Across Difference with Imam Abdullah Antipli and Maytal Friedman of Shalom Harmony Institute of North America, and we were granted permission to share it with you. Special thanks to Temple Bethel of South Orange County, the Jewish Federation of Orange County, the Rose Project of Orange County, and the Shalom Hartman Institute of North America. It was an opportunity to hear how the Muslim Leadership Initiative tries to build relationships of understanding, respect, and trust between North American Muslim and Jewish communities. This is seeking peace by identifying similarities and diversity between our 2 communities. Where's the pathway cleared for understanding, and where can some spring cleaning help? Through a rigorous academic curriculum and exposure to diverse narratives, MLI seeks to expand participants' critical understanding of the complex religious, political, and socioeconomic issues facing people in Israel and Palestine. The program invites North American Muslims to explore how Jews understand Judaism, Israel, and Jewish peoplehood. When someone says they are pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian, What do they mean? Assuming you know is the first mistake. What is a Jew? Religion, race, ethnicity, culture. What is a Palestinian? Within Israel, in the West Bank, in Gaza? It's complicated, and these definitions are always influenced by our own perceptions. The last few interviews were with schools. Education is paramount in helping both sides understand the other, and often much of what is important to learn happens outside of textbooks. Regeneration education advances peace building through innovative approaches to the education, development, and resilience of young children in crisis zones so they are able to imagine and create a better future. Many children, especially those in Israel and the West Bank, are affected by toxic stress. Violent conflict and poverty are the most common culprits. Toxic stress harms a child's life in many ways: brain development, academic achievement, and mental and physical health. Even their likelihood of committing violent crimes increases. Perhaps the most tragic side effect is the stalled development of empathy, a foundation for peace building. Regeneration education addresses childhood toxic stress for Jewish, Christian, and Muslim children by partnering with and co-sponsoring trauma-informed schools for children in Israel and the West Bank, hosting conferences and trainings focused on educating children in crisis zones for Western and Middle Eastern kindergarten and elementary school teachers, and initiating and building interfaith networks in the US that model healing in the Middle East. The impact of conflicts on children is particularly hard to hear. As a mom, it hurts me deeply that the next generation can be impacted for the rest of their lives through no fault of their own.
How do you raise a child in a place that's full of trauma to feel that they have the same chance at happiness and well-being that every other child in the world does?
After a night that you don't sleep and your children was afraid and there was a bomb and siren,
it's more than any film you can make up.
The trauma, the insecurity of a society in which warfare is always at the brink, in which there could be a bomb or a rocket or this or that, you know, that's just, it's tangible.
They always say, I cannot remember. I cannot remember. It is as everything goes in and out, and I have no access to my body.
And the children will ask you, why we are shot by gun? Why we are facing this war?
You can see the kids are a little bit more intense.
How do you educate people past their fear and anger?
The fear has a physiological process, and this is why children who are afraid have difficulty learning and remembering.
אני עובד המון באמפתיה עם ילדים עם בעיות התנהגות או בעיות קשב וריכוז, המון.
The aggression comes out of his shattered nerve system.
What is my task in a conflict area is to show my children there are more ways than what they are usually as shown by the TV or the public.
Not talking about what kind of Arab are you Muslim or Christian, what kind of Jew are you, where have you arrived from, it doesn't matter.
It's so essential to begin with the youth. It's only later these ideas are pumped into our heads that we're different.
كيرش إنه الولد هناك بمرق مرحلة اللي هي مرحلة أهم مرحلة بحياته بالجيل هذا.
Because we know that when children experience those years in a healthy way, then they go into their elementary school and they're whole.
We want them to grow up and feel in a natural way to belong, just to belong to this place.
يعني التعليم إلى ما لا نهاية. أهم شيء التعليم مش سلاح الإنسان اللي هي شهادته.
Our hope is in educating our children in such a way
that they see forgiveness and compassion and understanding and redemption and healing as every bit as important as math and science.
Today, almost every place becomes a conflict area. So the solution that the educators here develop can be taken to heal other places.
If we work with the young children now, then we stop the war 20 years from now.
In this way, it has to be done in this very moment. You can't wait for the politicians.
Let's do it. Don't wait. And we can do it right here and now.
Today, we'll be speaking with Hadas Gottlieb, the principal at the Eastern Mediterranean International School in Israel, or EMIS. In part 2, we'll speak with the students. EMIS brings together Israeli Jews and Arabs, Palestinians, and international high school students from across national and cultural divides for a life-changing educational experience. As adults looking at Middle East peace negotiations, we know we already screwed it up and are leaving it to the next generation, hopefully, to finally fix it. At Peace with Penny, we always find it inspirational when peace organizations work with those who probably will be burdened to solve this dilemma. Aren't you glad to know there is a high school in Israel who's committed to helping prepare all sides for the difficult task by bringing them together as young people, introducing them to each other and to the issues to begin hashing out potential solutions? A nonprofit founded in 2014, EMIS is home to 190 students. 20% are Israeli Jews and Arabs, 20% come from Arab and Muslim nations, and 60% hail from 40 other countries around the world. Each brings their own identity and perspective, and together they weave a colorful tapestry that welcomes difference while finding common ground. Students live and learn together for 2 years in a vibrant community that celebrates pluralism, nurtures entrepreneurship, and fosters outstanding academic skills. EMIS offers students several academic tracks to pave their way to the best of higher education. Their academic curriculum follows the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. The social and educational EMIS experience teaches diversity, dialogue, and the value of peace. EMIS also teaches respect for the environment and promotes sustainability as a way of life. How would you describe EMIS?
Well, after your introduction, it will be a little hard, but I think that I can say that it's actually some kind of an island, you might say, or a very unique place in Israel, which is, as you know and experience yourself, very hard country sometimes to live at. So will be my first description of EMIS, if I would say, like a small place that we try to keep isolated sometimes in order for us to have the things that we want to do there, but then we open it all the time to the world. So yeah.
So it's a boarding school. Can you talk about what that really means? Because a lot of people here just aren't familiar. We, don't necessarily go to boarding schools, although, when you have a teenager at home, it's quite tempting to send them somewhere.
Sometimes. Yeah, but then you want to send them to a military boarding school, not just a boarding school. Yeah, so the concept of this school is that you have students from all around the world that are coming for experience of 2 or 3 years. It depends on the track that they are taking. They are living boarding life, which means that they are here 24/7 actually. It's not a closed boarding school, which means that they can go out if they want to. They can do things outside of schools, but they need, of course, permission, like you would have at home with your parent, with your children or children with their parents. We provide them, of course, the accommodation. They are 4 students in room, boys separately and girls separately, in order to maintain it more comfortable for them. And so there are 4 students in a room. They have their own bed, their own closet, and they place a small desk to study at, but it's a relatively small place.
How did they end up in the room? Who books them into the room?
At first, when they're arriving, we divide them. The school divide them. They divided by nationality most of the time, which means that we try to put 1 Israeli, 1 Palestinian, and international students in the room. Not always it will be the case.
Oh, so you mix it. You mix it up.
Yeah, and we try not to put like all the Israelis in one room and all the Vietnamese in one room. We try to spread them around in order for them to know each other better. This is the best way to know each other. They're sleeping together, they're eating together, you know, arguing, reconciling, coexist together.
So the kids are coming from where?
So the kids are coming, as you said in your intro, the kids are coming from either they're Israelis or we have a lot of Palestinian students. This is the school mission, so we try to meet a lot. But we have students from all around the world. We have Vietnamese students, Chinese, from Laos, Cambodia, Burma, South America, Brazil, I don't know, Peru, you name it, Africa, Kenya, South Africa. I interviewed yesterday students from Malawi. Maybe she will come next year.
Today we'll continue our discussion about the Eastern Mediterranean International School in Israel, or EMIS, with 2 of their students, 1 Jewish Israeli and a Muslim Palestinian. We won't be using the students' real names, and we also don't intend to show their faces during the interview, but we will hear their answers to our questions. Why? In what we hope is an overabundance of caution, the fact remains that due to potential anti-normalization dangers, and with Uvalde fresh on our hearts and minds, we wanted these courageous teens to be and feel safe. As they begin to bury the Uvalde innocence, our prayers go out to their families and friends. May their memories be a blessing. Our 2022 reality is dire, and what remains to be seen is, will we do something about it? It is such an honor to speak to the next generation that will hopefully fix this Middle East mess we've left them. Speaking with the students leading up to our interview was inspiring, and if other students are as impassioned to improve their reality, we're in great hands. Having the opportunity to hear what it's like to go to high school with the other, as well as the impact of living with people from so many different cultures and the influence it's had on them personally, was a lesson in remaining open to new experiences, truly listening, confronting their own perceptions, and ultimately transformation. Admittedly, it made me want to be a teenager again and share some of the experiences they've had. What a unique opportunity filled with growth and possibility. The school's motto, the School for Change, fits their experience in many different ways. Dana is Palestinian and a girl, and that Yonatan is a boy and is our Israeli student. How would you describe MS, Yonatan?
I think MS is a school that gives you a unique opportunity to meet a lot of people from a lot of different places, and especially for me as an Israeli, to meet Palestinians is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I think just by putting us in the same place and showing us who the other side, and also people from other cultures, who they really are, it allows us to learn a lot.
It's a little bit confusing to me in that, and I think to other people, because Israelis and Palestinians live, next to each other. However, I understand that they don't necessarily associate with one another. Did you care to comment on that?
Yes, like technically we do live close to each other. There's also Palestinians in Israel, Arab Israelis, and it's not like we never see the other side, but I don't think we get the opportunity to actually talk to the other side the same way we get here.
How about you, Dana?
I really I think MS is a very, very unique place. And I really consider it my second home because all of my friends here are here, and all of the people that are helping me through my journey are also here. I think it's very nice because we learn a lot. Every day we learn new things that will help us in our future. And not only academic things, I'm talking about life things that we learn through situations that we're put in, through relationships, through problems. And I think I would never be able to learn those lessons unless I'm in such a unique community.
Now, you've actually had an extra year there. You have been there since 10th grade, right?
Yeah.
And your home is Ramallah, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what life at home is like?
I mean, I live in I live in Ramallah, so I feel like Ramallah is less politically involved than other cities in Palestine. But other than that, I don't know, my life was kind of I would say comfortable, other than of course freedom of movement and trying to get to other places is a bit more complicated. But other than that, I think it was it was good. It was just less challenging than how MS is right now, because I've never lived in a community where there's a lot of Israelis around me. And I feel like being here is really building my personality much more stronger than it was.
How about you, Jonathan? Where do you live and what's it like there?
I live in Tel Aviv, and for me, my life are pretty much the same as the life of anyone that lives in the United States or in Europe, or actually in every developed country. Yes, my life are not very much different than anyone else's. I don't live the conflict the same way Dana does, and the conflict is not a part of my daily life. And yes, being here in MS it helps you to, as Dana said, build your personality and grow in a way that I don't think I'd be able to get if I stayed back home in my normal public school.
So you, MS is a boarding school, but the international students obviously can't go home on the weekends, but you both live close enough to have that opportunity. I'm wondering, Dana, if you could describe, though, what is it like getting to and from school?
I mean, going back home is not as complicated, because when you enter the West Bank from like the Israeli territory, you don't really have to go through a checkpoint, but when I want to leave the West Bank, I have to. And it's kind of like, I mean, I feel like the checkpoints are the one thing in my life that I will never be able to get used to. Like I go through other tough things in my life, but I tend to like, I usually get used to them and be like, this is what it is. Like, it's fine. But with checkpoints, it's a very intense when you go through them, because I feel like anything that I might do will be perceived as like something threatening, and anything might happen to me. They're very dangerous. They're very dangerous places, and anything could happen at any time. And like every time I come back to the school, after I come back like from going through the checkpoints, I like ask myself, like, why do I have to go through all of this in order to come and make peace here while I'm going through all of those checkpoints and all of those things? So it really makes me question a lot of things.
So do you ever take it further and ask I mean, obviously, because of the number of terror attacks, etc., there, even in the US, when we, go to the airport or wherever, we also get checked. Do you ever think about whether or not that makes sense? If you were in that position, how would you handle, wanting people to be safe?
I mean, it's not only about the idea of the checkpoint, it's also about the way that the soldiers on the checkpoints treat Palestinians. That's the main thing that bothers me, not the checkpoint itself, but the way that Palestinians are being treated on checkpoints.
What's that like?
I mean, they treat you in a way that you're basically less valuable and less important than they are, and they would have this attitude of like just basically being like purely like rude to the person in front of them. And they wouldn't mind screaming at people. They wouldn't mind just deciding not to let people enter, even though they have the permit and like they have the permit and everything. A lot of situations happen on the checkpoint.
Have you had that happen before to you?
I mean, like there's a lot of stories, but the main one that like happened to me like a while ago was I was at the checkpoint and I had my belt on, and when you go through the thing that checks if you have anything in your pockets, if you have your belt on, it will ring. So I forgot my belt on, and then the soldier was like hysterically like screaming at me like I just committed a crime. And I was very nervous. Like I thought, like I was very scared because like I'm just a girl who's like going through a checkpoint. I'm just a 16-year-old going through a checkpoint, and a soldier is like screaming at me with their gun and everything. So it was pretty traumatizing, to be honest. It wasn't like and it was just a very like tough situation.
Oy, sorry that happened. We hope you enjoyed the special recap of season 3. I have to say it was lots of work, but a joy to put together. Looking back over the past season and seeing the number of peace organizations working diligently every day to make the situation better for both sides was inspiring. Do you agree? Now our break begins. What will we be doing during our hiatus? We're already busy preparing for season 4, starting September 13th. During summer, we'll be rebroadcasting some of the episodes, continuing to showcase these peacemakers who work using many different avenues to help create understanding and move toward peace. We'll also be asking for some feedback from you, trying to make the show even better. At Peace with Penny, we strive to educate, and that means ourselves too. We're learning how to do a podcast better and want to do the best job possible. The folks we interview deserve for people to know about them, and we're trying to learn how best to accomplish that. Any ideas? Let us know. And if you could, please share episodes. Thanks. We hope while we are working on getting season 4 ready, that you'll take advantage to catch up on any episodes that you may have missed from seasons 1 through 3. Finally, our prayers continue to go out to the people of Ukraine and all the people who are suffering for whatever reason. As always, we hope that someday everyone will live in peace, shalom, and salam.